So we have Mr. JoJo Mason on Pure Country. How are you?
I'm doing swell today. How are you, Miss Shannon Ella?
Good. I'm good. I'm starting to feel like this is normal now. Talking to you on Zoom. It's like the third time we've done this, maybe?
Yeah, yeah. Which is, you know what? I mean, it sucks that we can't physically be there and we can't hug it out like we always do. But at least we get to see each other. At least we get to hang for a minute, and I'll take it. I'll take it in the midst of everything.
If it was the olden days, we would be writing to each other like pen pals.
Like letters,
Yeah.
letters, and I'd have to wait weeks and weeks and weeks to hear from you. That would be
We should do that though. We should bring that back.
You know what's funny? So I was doing that mental health Mondays, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that somebody told me that I should do is and that people should do is write letters to people.
Pen pals.
Send them, send them in the mail. I think it ended when it was easy just to send a text message.
Yeah, that's probably what it ended. You're right. Okay, so I'm so excited to have you on to talk about this because one, it's a very important conversation, but two, we've talked briefly on social media. Every time you have spoken out about the Black Lives Matter movement, it just moves me so much. And it also moves me to see how many people react to it and support it. And how crazy has that been for you? Because you said in your post, you were fearful of posting and sharing your message at first, but then to get the response you've gotten back, what's that been like?
First, I think it's been incredible. And that was the biggest thing for me was being nervous and being able to really collect my thoughts before I spoke out about it. And I guess I've just gotten to a point where I've just kind of accepted that some days are going to be really, really good days. Some of them are going to be, incredible days. And there's other days that you're just going to have to allow yourself to go through it. And it was such a roller coaster of emotions because I couldn't compartmentalize why I was feeling this way and why I was feeling that way and why one day I was angry and another day I was sad. So it took me a minute to gather my thoughts, but I feel confident enough now speaking out about it and being able to speak about it. So the reaction, 99% of it has been very, very supportive, which is, I'm really, really happy. But I was surprised because as a musician, putting your heart out there is always one thing. But in a time like we are in right now, and especially in this particular circumstance, it was really scary because there's a couple different sides I got to cater to, right? I mean, I don't want to become insensitive to Black Lives Matter, but I also want to preach the just be a good person message that that I'm about, right?
Yeah. And I think that's part of it too, is that's part of the problem we have to fix is it being scary to talk about it. Because I think that for me was something, I grew up in a household that, my mom, we were raised, everyone is equal. I remember my grandmother saying to me one time, because it's so true that it's learned, you know what I mean?
Totally.
You don't grow up, you don't just immediately, think those things. My grandmother, a long time ago, I was so young and we were watching a movie and I was saying about a character in the movie. And I said, the black man in the movie. And my grandmother said, why do you have to say the black man? And I went, well, because that's how I describe him. And she goes, there's so many other ways to describe him without using that. And I think back on that now and I'm like, that was such a huge part of my childhood because that stuck with me. And I was like, that's not who that person is.
Totally. And Shan, that's the message right there. And that's the thing that I've been preaching. I can't speak on a lot of stuff that's happening in the States because I'm not down there. I'm not experiencing that firsthand. And that's in a whole another level of crazy and insane of stuff that's going on down there. But that is right there, Shan. That's the message that I've been preaching. It's those little things that out of all of this, I want to come come out of this is that mind shift. Just the flip in the way you perceive or the way you look at somebody. It's when you're, like you said, when you're describing somebody, it's no longer, oh yeah, it's the black guy, or it's the Asian guy, or it's the the East Indian guy. It's, oh yeah, it's the guy with the big beard, or it's the guy with the slick haircut. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Or the really
That's
kind person, or you know what I mean? And Steven and I have noticed it, and we've actually stopped watching certain TV shows or movies because, again, it's something that's in popular culture, that in like comedians and stuff talking so specifically about race and color and emphasizing that, and like watching movies that it's so lighthearted and funny, and you're like, that's part of the problem. Why are we doing this?
It's part of the problem, but it's also the stereotypes that we've grown up being a part of, right? And that's kind of what it's always been. It's always just been the I'll give you an example. So when I used to work at a pub down in Vancouver, I was talking to Chanel about this yesterday, and she said to me, she's like, I never noticed, but when she would work daytime lunches, she'd have some old folks come in and they would sit down, and I would work daytimes with her, and she would be serving the customers, and they'd somehow, I would be brought up in conversation, and the ladies would say things like, oh, how do your parents feel about you two being together? And it's like, that's just the mentality, and that's what we grew up as, right? And I think for comedians, they're going to have a hard time because those stereotypes are now unacceptable, right? Those are the things that, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited about it. And
it bothers me when I watch Coffee, and I'm like, this is not funny. And also, it's so common in comedy that's how it's used, that they have such an opportunity to change the way that people, because Donovan Bailey said it the best, like, this is more specifically in Canada, but like in Canada, it's racism with a smile. And I have corrected so many of my friends growing up because they'd say something that was racist or that was, derogatory. And I'd be like, guys, and they're like, Shannon, come on, it's a joke. I'm like, I don't care if it's a joke. It's not appropriate. Stop doing it. And they're like, oh, have you ever watched, Robin Williams stand-up comedy, or, all these comedians? And I'm like, I still don't think it's funny. I don't care if a comedian is saying it. So, there's so many facets of our culture that we have to change. And that's one of them. And I'm sure you probably dealt with it growing up, is like having your friends or people you grew up with joking with you about it.
It's the jokes that that are it's a real thing, right? Yeah. And at the time too, and I've had a couple conversations with some Black friends of mine that grew up in Canada as well, and it was the same thing. And we choose not to how do I say this? We choose not to fight against it. I did it in my early days. And I was like, don't say that, rah, rah, da, da, da. And people, it's a joke, man. It's cool. Like, I got Black friends, or my cousin's dating a Black guy, or so, you know what I mean? And it was that mentality. And so I personally, I stopped getting invited to stuff because I started calling everybody out. I'm like, hey guys, stop doing that. Stop saying that. People don't want to be around negative Nancy all the time. So it was one of those.
You.
Right. I mean, that's what I think too. But but it was one of those things, right? It was what it was. And now that we know, now that we're able to have these conversations, and we're able to shed light on the things that are really wrong. And and like I said, it's not going to start. It's not going to change overnight. You can't just change 400 years of oppression, in overnight. But the really, really exciting part is that we are part of the change now.
Yeah.
And we get to see it, we get to live it. And that's exciting to me.
And be a part of coming up with ways of implementing it. Like, I think what you said when you were working at the bar, that, I grew up, the older generation, my grandmother, like, she grew up in a world where that was normal to talk that way and say things like that. And now we have the opportunity to raise the next generation to be smarter and be more educated and know about history and know why things are wrong and right. And I think that is so important. And I think everyone, like, I've had so many conversations with people that never understood what they were doing was wrong, and seeing people go, "Ugh, I can't believe I've done that or I said that," and being okay with admitting that they were racist or that they said racist things. It's like, that's so
Totally.
important.
It is. And the thing, another big thing, Shan, that I really want to preach and I really want to touch on is that exactly is looking inside of yourself, realizing the things that that you may have said or you may have done that is now no longer acceptable, but learning from it and moving on and continuing to teach. That's how you grow. Sitting around and dwelling and wondering if you're a good person and questioning your morals and the things that you were raised on. If you were raised wrong, then there are things that are coming out to light. Then those are the things you need to change. But recognizing it is the biggest thing, and not just recognizing it, but implementing those small changes, those mental shifts, and not being hard on yourself. Like, if you're a good person, you're a good person. Continue to be that good person, and you don't need to look for holes in your morals and your personality and the way you were raised and this and that. But right from wrong. Common sense is very, very easy to come by.
Yeah.
For a lot of people.
For
Some people not so much. But I think it's just so important to not be hard on yourself, not look for things that are wrong, but recognize when you do or accept when you do recognize things are wrong or things that you may have said. Again, I'm not perfect. The stereotypes are real and they've been there for forever. So
also, I think it's important to, there are people that maybe at first didn't, agree with things that were being said or, the changes that needed to be made, and maybe said the wrong things out of the gate.
Right.
But also part of the change is allowing people to learn from their mistakes and make a change. And, people have to be understanding and willing to educate them and, support them along those journeys,
Totally.
which is tough. And then the other thing, so social media obviously has become, it's so weird because I have such a love-hate relationship with social media, but in this case, it's so important. Like you decided to do Where's the Love by Black Eyed Peas, which has always been one of my favorite songs ever. And when you sat down to do it, it was probably like, if I could say the words in music, this is the way you would write it and say it, because it was just the perfect message. Was it hard for you to sing it just with everything going on and knowing the impact of the words you were singing?
Yeah, it was surprising how how much I struggled with it, but just with how intense those feelings really were. My guy Mike Young, he's incredible musician, incredible bass player, and an incredible producer as well. So him and I like to do some work together, and he also helped me produce "Numb," my cover of "Numb"
Okay.
as well. And so I remember walking into sitting down with Mike and walking into a studio and sitting down and saying, "Yep, I got this idea. What do you think we should do?" This was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we didn't leave until about 4 in the morning, and we had stopped and started. And there was passes where I would be standing in the microphone, put my headphones on, and I'd be ready to go, and then all of a sudden oh God, I gotta hold on for a second, Mike. I can't. And he pressed play, stop. Okay, take your time, man. Take time. So he was really patient, which is what I love about him, and understanding. And he did an incredible job on it. But sitting there and realizing how emotional and how much those words really mean, that's what we wanted to portray, and that's why we slowed it down, and that's why we took our time with it, and really made a point to make sure all of the words were, like I said, being portrayed properly.
Yeah.
And it's what's crazy to think, Shantu, is in 2003 that song came out.
I know.
That was 17 years ago.
Yeah.
Which 17, that's close to on the better part of 2 decades. Like, and we're still having these conversations.
Yeah. And influential people are speaking up and talking about it. And, it's now social media is what's happening is, like everyone has said, is people have cell phones now, and the stuff that's been going on all along is now just being videotaped and posted to social media instantaneously, and people are seeing it. And I think that's what people need to realize, is that yes, what's going on right now is horrible. What's happened to people, but it's been happening. And there's so many people that light hasn't been drawn to, that we have to realize that we're doing this because of everybody that has suffered
That's
from
it.
this.
That's it. And you can't put a more of an importance on one culture's oppression as opposed to somebody else or another culture's oppression as well, right?
Yeah.
And in Canada, I know that it's been really, really tough for, you know, the indigenous culture of our country, and to know that stuff like that happens to, you know, right here in our backyard, it's tough to fathom. But
Yeah.
now, but like you said, it's social media has been an incredible tool to
Mhm.
bring light to the things that are really going on. And like you said, they haven't stopped happening. They haven't stopped happening. Things are continuing to go like as they are. And I truly believe that if there is a divide, if there continues to be a divide in people, then there's always going to be a chance for hate. And that's what we need to be working towards. And that's where, like I said, raising your kids right and educating your friends and the people that you surround yourself with, and letting them know that right over here, what you just said is not okay.
Mhm.
That mentality is the start of the change. And as social media continues to grow and it continues to get bigger and bigger, you best believe that things are going to continue to get videotaped.
Yep.
You know, the crazy Karens of the world are going to continue to get exposed, and the racial remarks are being thrown in your face. And it takes something like that for people to realize what is really going on.
Yeah.
You know, Will
And
Smith said it best. It's not new. It's just being filmed.
filmed. Yeah, exactly. And, as long as the people who respond, which it makes me angry talking about it, but people who respond with the all lives matter. I saw a post one day that I was like, you couldn't have explained it any better. It's like someone calling the fire department and saying their house is on fire, and the fire department coming, and everybody in the surrounding area getting mad that their house isn't, getting protected. And it's like,
Yeah,
your house isn't on fire. Like, your
that's
house
it.
would be protected if it was, but it's not. So it's,
That's it.
it's hard. And I've had some really difficult conversations with people I know who say, well, Shannon, like, yeah, Black Lives Matter, but so do all lives. I'm like, that you're missing what is going on right now. But it's important to not just shut those people out. It's important to educate them on why
The
that
the the
statement is
simple
not okay.
the simple fact of the matter is, if you continue to say all, not you but the general you, if you continue to say all lives matter, let me ask you then, do Black lives matter to you? Right? Do white lives matter? Of course white lives matter. And the whole Black lives movement isn't saying, you know, Black lives are more important than you, Black lives are more important than those lives or these lives. It's just like, we just want to matter.
Yep.
That's it. We just want to matter. Somebody's saying, so there was another example of a comedian going on, is Martin Che, I think his name is, Mr. Che, I know his last name is Che. He said, it's exact same as, you know, you making love to your wife, and your wife says, baby, do you love me? And you say, yeah, of course I do, but I love everybody because I love everybody. And it's like, wait a minute,
Yeah, you're like,
come,
hold on. It's the
wait,
same as
wait a
breast
minute.
cancer. Like, breast cancer awareness. Somebody said to me, it would be like, celebrating breast cancer awareness and someone with prostate cancer being like, well, I don't support that because I have prostate cancer, and prostate
That's
cancer
exactly it.
matters more. Like,
It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make any sense. And I had somebody on my Twitter when I posted that video, my Where's the Love video. I had somebody immediately, one of the first comments, hashtag all lives matter. And one thing I love, Shan, one thing I love about country music, and country music in Canada is that I had a whole team of people coming to the rescue. It was just like, it was incredible. And that's, again, it's one of those things I feel so accepted. And I have never had moments where I haven't felt like I'm included in things because of the color of my skin. I haven't felt like I've been at a disadvantage. I feel like I hope, and as do as do all musicians, I hope that my music speaks for itself. And that's what I want, is my music to speak for itself. And again, one thing I love about country music in Canada is that, as competitive as we are, as competitive as it is, we are still out there for each other. We love each other, and and as you know, being part of the fam, we are exactly that. We are a family, and we all support one another, and it's incredible. I feel so blessed to be part of something so spectacular.
Well, we always are here to support. And I think it's cool to see the country music community and people that you would not necessarily expect to see speak up on topics like this, who generally shy away from any sort of, big conversation on social media, recognizing that like this is important and speaking up on it. And I think that was the most important thing for me to see at the beginning of this whole thing was, nobody being afraid probably at first, but still speaking up no matter what, because it took me a while to figure out the right words on how to say it, because it's not an easy conversation to have, because it's not something we're used to talking about.
That's right.
So it's cool to see people speaking up and supporting you.
I just, as soon as everything started to hit the fan, to see the outcry of support and how much anger, how angry it made people, the way that it made people feel the way that I feel, and the way that I felt. It was amazing. It was so cool. I've never been more proud, to be from Canada, but also to be part of country music. I hope there's always a place for me here, and I want everybody. Right. I want young people of color, could be anybody, to know that country music isn't just, yes, it's predominantly white, because that's how it is. Maybe some brothers just don't want a banjo in the song. I'm not sure, but I want people to know that it's an option, and we're always open, arms open all the time. And that's a message that I'm proud that I felt, but I'm also proud to relate to, like I said, the generation coming up too. Right.
Well, I appreciate you doing this. And I think it is so important, like I said, that we had this conversation now to keep this conversation going, even after the, initial coming in hot of the movement happened. And I hope that when people watch this video, I encourage them to comment, positive comments, questions, or anything, because I know you are always good at answering people and, and talking about it. Because I think that's what you and I both encourage, is I want to keep the conversation going. So I hope people watch this and, feel inclined to ask questions or show their support.
I hope so too. One thing, about social media is that when something is hot, it's very, very hot, but it comes down just as fast. And like you just said, the conversation of something to this magnitude needs to just continue to be had and to continue on. So, like I said, I hope, like you said, I hope when people watch this, they ask questions and they reach out and show love. And if you don't believe in it, question it. Let's open a dialogue. I want everybody to feel safe. I want everybody to feel safe when they're talking to me. I want everybody to feel safe when they're talking to you. And if they don't believe or don't buy into what I'm saying or what's going on in the world, then that's fine. Know that that's okay. Everybody's got a right to their own beliefs. Everybody's got a right to their own opinions, as long as you know every side of the story.
Yeah, absolutely. We just encourage positive conversation on Pure Country. That's all I can say.
Of course. Of course.
Well, thank you so much, JoJo. I love you so much. And we'll just continue to virtual hug until I get a real one.
Love you, Sam.